In a heavy rainstorm on the Lagos-Ibadan expressway, a billionaire found himself stranded beside his luxurious Rolls-Royce with a broken axle. He called for help, but there was no signal. He tried to move the car himself and failed. Anger and despair hit him as he remembered the $2.3 billion contract waiting to be signed in Lagos mainland. Just when all hope seemed lost, 3 poor boys appeared through the blinding rain and fixed his car in minutes. When he offered them $500 in thanks, they flatly refused, and the reason they gave left the billionaire speechless before finding out the truth. Tell me where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe to see tomorrow's surprise. Damn it. Derek Williams's voice cracked through the wet morning air as he kicked the submerged axle. Pain shot through his foot, but he didn't care. The anger felt better than the panic rising in his chest. 7:45 in the morning. The sun should have been up by now, but the storm had turned the sky into a wall of grey and black. Water and mud fell so thick Derek could barely see 10 feet ahead. He stood on the side of the road, both hands pressed against the side of his car, breathing hard. Each breath came out in white clouds that disappeared into the storm. "This can't be happening," he said, his voice shaking. "This cannot be happening to me." But it was. The axle had blown 15 minutes ago. Derek had been driving 70 miles per hour, maybe faster, trying to make up time. Then boom, the sound had been so loud he thought someone had shot at him. The car jerked right. His hands fought with the steering wheel. The Rolls-Royce skidded fishtailed and finally stopped at an angle on the shoulder. Now here he was, stuck on a back road near a repo in the middle of a flash flood. Derek pulled out his phone. His hands were already going numb, even through his leather gloves. He held up the phone, squinting at the screen through the falling rain. No signal. "No," he whispered. He walked forward a few steps, holding the phone higher. "Come on, come on." Still nothing. Just those 2 words at the top of the screen. No service. Derek tried calling anyway. He pressed his assistant's number and waited. The phone didn't even ring. Just went straight to call failed. He tried again. Same thing. Damn it. He wanted to throw the phone into the mud. $500 million in the bank and his 1000 iPhone was useless. Completely useless. The wind picked up, blowing water sideways into his face. Derek turned away, squinting. His coat was already covered in watermarks. On the coat it felt so warm in his penthouse that morning. Now it felt like paper. He walked to the back of the car and popped the trunk. Inside, perfectly organized, sat the spare tire. Next to it, a jack, a lug wrench, an emergency kit he'd never opened. Derek stared down at it all. He had no idea what to do with any of it. "Okay," he said out loud, trying to calm himself. "Okay, I can figure this out. I went to Stanford. I built a company from nothing. I can change a wheel." But even as he said it, he knew he couldn't. 25 years ago, maybe back when he was poor and drove that piece of crap Honda. Back then he fixed everything himself because he had to. Oil changes, brake pads, broken components. But that was another life. Now, Derek Williams paid people to do things like this. He had people for everything. His assistant handled his schedule. His driver took him everywhere. His building manager dealt with problems. Derek just made decisions and signed checks. He reached down and grabbed the lug wrench. It was heavier than he expected. Cold metal even through his gloves. He walked to the broken axle and knelt down in the mud. His $4,000 Berluti shoes sank into the thick red mud. He could feel the cold water soaking through, immediately freezing his feet. His pants, custom-made $1,500, were getting soaked at the knees. Derek positioned the wrench on one of the lug nuts and pulled. Nothing happened. He pulled harder. The wrench slipped off, and he fell backward into the mud. He scrambled up mud all over his coat, his pants, and his hair. He tried again. This time, he put his whole body into it, pulling with all his strength. The wrench slipped again. Derek went down hard, his shoulder hitting the side of the car. He stayed there for a moment on his knees in the mud, breathing hard. His shoulder throbbed, his hands hurt, his feet were going numb. And the lug nut hadn't moved at all. "I can't do this," he said quietly. Then louder. "I can't do this." Derek stood up. He was shaking now, but not from the cold, from frustration, from anger, from fear. He looked at his watch. 7:52. The meeting in Lagos mainland started at 9:30. He had 1 hour and 38 minutes. It was a 50-minute drive from here if he had a working car, which he didn't. Think, Derek told himself, pacing next to the car. Think, think, think. But there was nothing to think about. He had no signal. No one was coming. He was alone. The rain kept falling, already been falling. It had covered his footprints from just a minute ago. Nature was erasing him bit by bit like he didn't matter. Derek looked around. On both sides of the road, nothing but bush and floodwater. No houses, no cars, no people, just endless Ogun State wilderness. He'd chosen this route because it was faster, 40 minutes faster than the interstate. His assistant had warned him. "Mr. Williams, the weather report says..." But Derek had cut her off. "I don't care about the weather. I need to be in Lagos mainland by 9:30. So stupid, so arrogant. And now here he was paying for it. Derek walked back to the driver's seat and sat down. He stared at the dashboard, at all the buttons and screens and technology. This car had cost $150,000. It had heated seats, massage functions, a premium sound system, GPS that could guide him anywhere in the world. But it couldn't change its own axle, and neither could he. Derek laughed. It came out sounding half crazy. He pressed his palms against his eyes, trying to push back the panic. $500 million, he said to the empty car. "I have $500 million in assets. I can buy anything, anything. But I can't buy my way out of this money." His whole life had become about money. Making it, growing it, protecting it. Money was power. Money was control. Money meant he never had to depend on anyone. Except now, sitting here in a flood with a broken axle, his money meant nothing. He couldn't pay the rain to stop. Couldn't pay the axle to fix itself. Couldn't pay someone to appear out of nowhere and help him. For the first time in decades, Derek Williams was completely powerless. The wind howled. Water blew into the car, landing on the leather seats, melting into tiny puddles. Derek just sat there watching it happen. His phone buzzed. He grabbed it. Hope flared in his chest, but it was just a notification. Calendar reminder. Meeting Paramount Tower, 9:30 a.m. Derek stared at it. Then he threw the phone onto the passenger seat. "I'm not going to make it," he said out loud. Hearing the words made them real. "I'm going to lose this deal. 8 months of work, gone, because of a broken axle." Richard Attawale would be thrilled. His competitor had been circling this acquisition for months. If Derek didn't show up, Attawale would swoop in. He'd close the deal. He'd take the $2.3 billion prize that Derek had worked so hard to line up. And Derek's reputation finished. You don't miss a meeting like this. You don't disappear without a word. In his world, reliability was everything. Show up late and you are weak, failed to show at all. You were done. Derek felt something he hadn't felt in years. Real fear. Not the fear of losing money he'd made and lost millions before. This was deeper. The fear of being exposed, of everyone seeing that underneath all the success and the confidence and the expensive suits, he was just a man who couldn't fix his car. He looked down at his hands. They were shaking. His fingers, which had signed contracts worth billions, which had shaken hands with CEOs and senators, couldn't even grip a wrench properly. "Pathetic," he whispered. The clock on the dashboard changed 7:58 a.m. 1 hour and 32 minutes. Derek sat there in the open door of his Rolls-Royce rain falling around him, and felt smaller than he had in 25 years. The storm didn't care who he was, didn't care about his Stanford degree or his Ikoyi penthouse or his investment portfolio. Nature was crushing him, and there was nothing he could do about it. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath. The cold air burned his lungs. This was it. Rock bottom. The moment where everything he'd built came crashing down because of one stupid axle and one stupid decision to take a shortcut. Derek opened his eyes and stared out at the muddy emptiness. And then from somewhere in the distance, he heard something. Laughter. Derek froze. Through the howling wind, he heard it. Laughter. Young voices cutting through the storm. He lifted his head and squinted into the white wall of rain. 3 shapes emerged from the downpour. Small shapes moving toward him. 3 boys on bicycles. They pedaled through the storm like it was nothing, laughing and talking to each other. As they got closer, Derek could see them clearly. 3 black kids, probably teenagers. The tallest wore a torn red jacket. The middle one had taped up glasses and a blue coat with missing buttons. The smallest wore a faded yellow jacket, 3 sizes too big. They rode right up and stopped. "Man, that's a nice car," the tall one said, looking at the Rolls-Royce. Derek stared. Where had they come from? 3 kids in the middle of a flood. The tall one stepped off his bike. "You need help, sir?" Derek found his voice. "Where did you come from?" "A repo. Town's about 3 miles back." He looked at the broken axle. "Axle's blown out pretty bad." "Yes, Derek stood up, brushing mud off his coat. "I know. We can fix it," the boy said. Derek let out a sharp laugh. "You can fix it?" "Yeah." The boy looked at him like it was obvious. "You can't?" The question stung. Derek felt his face flush. I was about to," the boy with glasses spoke up. "It's okay, sir. Lots of people don't know how. We've done this tons of times." "On a Rolls-Royce?" Derek heard how snobby he sounded the second the words left his mouth. The smallest kid grinned. "Axle is axle, mister." Derek looked at them. They were serious, actually offering to help. "Look, I appreciate it, but what?" The tall one interrupted. "You got somewhere to be." Derek checked his watch. 8:03. "Actually, yes. A very important meeting in Lagos mainland." "Then we better hurry." The boy walked to the trunk and opened it. "I'm David." The one with glasses grabbed the jack. "Peter." The small one reached for the lug wrench. "Sam." They didn't wait for permission, just started working. "Wait," Derek said. "You can't just—" But they already were. David knelt by the axle, his bare hands red from cold and grime. Peter positioned the jack. Sam pressed against the car to steady it. "Don't you have gloves?" Derek asked. David shrugged. "Lost them, both of them." "Yeah." He didn't seem bothered. "Peter, jack goes here. Sam, hold it steady." They moved like a machine, smooth, practiced, like they'd done this 100 times. Derek stood there, useless. "You really know what you're doing." David looked up. Rain was collecting in his short hair. "My dad taught me before he got sick." Something in his voice made Derek stop talking. Peter worked the jack, pumping it up and down. The car lifted slowly. "See, sir, you gotta put the jack under the frame, not the body, otherwise you'll dent it." Derek nodded like he understood. He didn't. Sam started humming. Hip-hop. His voice was good. "You boys shouldn't be out in this storm," Derek said. "We're used to it," Sam said, still humming. "Used to rain, used to cold," David said. He had the wrench on the first lug nut now. His arm strained, his face tensed. Then the nut turned. Derek had tried that same thing 10 minutes ago. Couldn't even budge it. This kid did it like nothing. "How did you—" "Star pattern," Peter explained. "You loosen them like a star. Top, then bottom, right, then top left. Keeps the pressure even." David moved to the second nut. "Can you hand me that towel from the trunk?" It took Derek a second to realize David was talking to him. He hurried to get it. "Thanks." David wiped his greasy hands. Derek watched them work. They were so young, their clothes falling apart, out in a storm. But they were helping him, a complete stranger. "Why are you doing this?" Derek asked suddenly. David paused. "Doing what?" "Helping me. You don't know me." The 3 boys glanced at each other. David went back to work. "You looked like you needed help." "But you're just kids. You should be home. Warm, not out here." Sam laughed. "We were heading to pump water from Mom and Ngozi's driveway. She's old, can't do it herself." "In this storm?" "It's going to get worse later," David said. "Better now than later." Derek stared. These kids were going out in a flood to pump water for an elderly woman and stopped to help him on the way. "Almost done," David announced. He tightened the last lug nut. His breath came in white clouds. His fingers had to be frozen. Peter lowered the jack. The Rolls-Royce settled on 4 working tires. Sam brushed mud off his jacket. "All set, mister." Derek looked at the axle, then at the boys. "You actually did it." "Told you we could," David said, smiling. Derek felt something tight in his throat. "How long did that take?" Peter checked his watch. 18 minutes. 18 minutes. What Derek couldn't do at all. That's incredible. Derek pulled out his wallet. His hand shook as he opened it. Inside a thick stack of hundreds, he pulled out 5 bills. $500. Here, he said, holding them out to David. You earned this. All of you. You saved me. David looked at the money, then shook his head. No, thank you, sir. Derek blinked. What? We don't need it. But Derek pushed the money closer. This is $500, take it. We didn't do it for money, Peter said. Sam was already on his bike. You needed help, mister, that's all. But I'm offering you $500. Derek's voice rose. Why won't you take it? David wiped his hands on his jacket. My dad used to say, you don't help people for what you get back. You help because it's right. Derek stood there, arm extended, holding money these kids refused. You're sure? His voice came out quieter now. You're absolutely sure? Derek stood there, arm extended, holding $500 that these kids refused. You're absolutely sure? David looked at the money, then at his 2 friends. Something passed between them, a silent understanding. We're sure, sir, David said, but then he paused. Can I tell you something? Derek lowered his hand. What about why we can't take your money? Okay. David looked down at his hands. They were still covered in grease from the axle. 2 years ago, my dad got sick, real sick, cancer. Derek felt his chest tighten. He was a mechanic, David continued. Worked at Miller's auto shop in town. Best mechanic in a repo, maybe in all of Ogun State. His voice carried pride. People came from 3 towns over just to have him work on their cars. Peter and Sam stood quiet. They'd heard this story before. One day, middle of rainy season, a woman broke down on this same road. Her car died. The floodwater was like, I don't know, chest high. She had 2 little kids in the back seat. They were crying. David's breath came out in white clouds as he talked. My dad was driving home from work. Saw her. He could have kept going. He was tired. He'd worked 10 hours that day, and Mom was waiting dinner for him. But he didn't keep going, Derek said quietly. No, sir. He pulled over, spent 2 hours in the pouring rain fixing her car. Got it running again. The woman tried to pay him. She had about $40, probably all the money she had. David looked up at Derek now. His eyes were bright. Dad said no. He told her to use that money to buy her kids something hot to eat. Then he followed her all the way to the next town just to make sure she made it safe. The wind howled around them. Rain kept falling, but Derek didn't feel cold anymore. 3 months later, David's voice got quieter. Dad collapsed at work. They found the cancer. It was bad. Stage 4 in his lungs, his liver everywhere. Jesus, Derek whispered. He couldn't work anymore. We had some savings, but not much. Medical bills started piling up. We were going to lose our house. Mom was working 2 jobs, but it wasn't enough. Peter spoke up now. That's when people started showing up. What people? Derek asked. Everyone, David said. The whole town. People Dad had helped over the years. They brought food, money, whatever they could. Mama Ngozi, the lady we're going to help today, she organized a fundraiser, raised $15,000. Sam nodded. Mr. Patterson at the hardware store. He paid 3 months of their mortgage. Didn't ask for it back. The woman with the 2 kids, David continued. The one Dad helped that night. She drove 3 hours to visit him in the hospital. Brought a card signed by like 50 people Dad didn't even know. People she told about what he did. The card had $2,000 in it. Derek felt something in his throat. He couldn't speak. Dad died 6 months later, David said, his voice steady but soft. But before he did, he called me to his hospital bed. He could barely talk. The cancer was in his throat by then, but he grabbed my hand and he said something I'll never forget. David stopped, took a breath. When he spoke again, his voice cracked just a little. He said, David, I'm leaving you boys without much. No big inheritance, no college fund, no house paid off, but I'm leaving you something more important. I'm leaving you a good name. People will remember me as someone who helped. That's worth more than any amount of money. You understand? A tear ran down David's face. He wiped it away quickly. I told him I understood. Then he said, "When you see someone who needs help, you help them. Not because they can pay you, not because you'll get something back. You help because that's what makes you human. That's what makes you rich. You promise me." David's hand went to his chest like he was holding something there. I promised him. We all did. Me, Mom, my little sister, we were all there. That was the last real conversation we had with him. 2 days later, he was gone. The three boys stood in the mud, silent. Derek realized Peter was crying too. Sam's eyes were red. "After the funeral," Peter said, "we made a pact, the three of us. We'd honor Mr. John Davis's memory by helping people whenever we could." "My dad knew David's dad," Sam added. "They worked together sometimes. Mr. Davis taught my dad everything about fixing cars. When he died, my dad cried for 3 days straight, said he lost the best man he ever knew." David looked at the $500 in Derek's hand, then at Derek's face. "So you see, sir, we can't take your money. It's not about the money, it never was. We saw you stuck out here in the cold. We thought about Dad, about what he'd do, and we knew. We just knew we had to stop." Derek's hand dropped to his side. The bills felt heavy now. Wrong. "My dad used to say," David continued, "that when you help someone for money, it's just a transaction. But when you help someone for nothing, it's a connection. And connections are what we're all here for, to connect, to be human together." The words hit Derek like a physical force. He said that being rich isn't about what you have in your bank account. It's about what you have in here. David tapped his chest. "How many people would cry at your funeral? How many lives did you make better? That's how you measure wealth, not in dollars." Derek stood frozen. He thought about his own father, a cold man, distant, who died 5 years ago. At the funeral, maybe 30 people showed up. Most were business associates. No one cried, not even Derek. He thought about his own life. How many lives had he made better? Really better? He couldn't think of any. "Your father," Derek said, his voice rough. "Sounds like he was an incredible man." "He was," David said simply. "Best man I ever knew. And you're honoring him by helping strangers in the rain." "We're trying, sir. Some days it's hard. Like today, it's cold as hell out here." David smiled through his tears. "But then we think about Dad, about how he never complained, never asked for anything back, and it makes it easier." Sam spoke up. "Plus it feels good helping people, you know." Derek realized he didn't know. He couldn't remember the last time he'd helped someone without expecting something in return. "So that's why we can't take your money," David finished. "It's not about pride, it's not about being stubborn. It's about keeping a promise to a man who taught us what really matters." The three boys stood there in their torn jackets in the freezing cold, having just spent 18 minutes fixing a major component of a stranger's car, and they were refusing $500 because of a promise made to a dying father. Derek felt something break inside him. Some wall he'd built up over years of deals and negotiations and treating everything like a transaction. "Your father would be proud of you," Derek said. His voice came out thick. "All three of you." "Thank you, sir," David said. "That means a lot. Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Do you ever regretted helping people for free when you have so little yourselves?" The three boys looked at each other. Then David shook his head. "No, sir. We've got everything that matters. We've got each other. We've got people in town who love us. We've got food on the table. That's more than enough." "But your jacket," Derek said, pointing at the tear. "Your glasses, Peter. They're held together with tape. You could use this money." "We could," Peter agreed. "But we don't need it. There's a difference." Sam grinned. "Besides, this jacket's got character. I've had it since I was 10. It's like an old friend." Derek looked at them. Really looked at them. Three boys who had nothing but somehow had everything. Who understood something about life that Derek, with all his education and success, had completely missed. "I wish I'd met your father," Derek said to David. "Me too, sir. He would have liked you." "How do you know?" "Because you stopped to listen. Dad always said you can tell a lot about a person by whether they listen or just wait to talk. You listened." Derek felt tears threatening. He blinked them back. When was the last time he'd cried? He couldn't remember. "I'll never forget this," Derek said. "Any of this. Any of you." "Just pay it forward, sir," David said. "That's what Dad always said. You can't pay back kindness. You can only pay it forward." The boys got on their bikes, ready to leave, ready to pedal through a flood to pump water for an elderly woman they probably weren't getting paid for either. "David!" Derek called out. The boy turned back. "Your father was right about everything." David smiled. Not a sad smile anymore. A real one. "I know, sir. I know." And then they were gone. 3 boys on bicycles disappearing into the rain, carrying with them a legacy of kindness that a dying mechanic had left behind. Derek stood on that empty road for a full minute after the boys disappeared. The $500 was still in his hand. He looked at it. Then slowly, carefully, he folded the bills and put them back in his wallet. But his hands were shaking. He got in the Rolls-Royce, closed the door, sat there in silence. The heater hummed outside. Rain kept falling. The world kept moving, but inside the car, Derek felt like time had stopped. He kept seeing David's face. That kid, 15 years old, crying while talking about his dead father, but still smiling, still helping, keeping a promise. When you help someone for money, it's just a transaction. But when you help someone for nothing, it's a connection. The words echoed in Derek's head. He looked at the dashboard clock. 8:28 a.m., 1 hour and 2 minutes until the meeting. Derek made it to Lagos mainland CBD with 38 minutes to spare. The Paramount Tower rose 47 stories into the grey sky. Glass and steel, cold and perfect, just like everything else in his world. He pulled into the underground garage. A valet rushed over with an umbrella even though they were inside. "Good morning, Mr. Williams." Derek didn't respond. He handed over the keys and walked to the elevator. His reflection stared back from the polished steel doors. Expensive suit, perfect hair, the face of success. But all he saw were 3 boys in torn jackets. David's voice echoing in his head. "That's how you measure wealth, not in dollars." The elevator climbed. Derek watched the numbers light up. 10, 20, 30. Each floor taking him higher, further from the ground, further from those boys. 47th floor. The doors opened. His assistant Esther was waiting, tablet in hand, looking worried. "Mr. Williams, thank God I couldn't reach you. Mr. Adderwale's been here for 20 minutes already. He's getting impatient." "I'm here now," Derek said flatly. "Are you all right? You look—" "I'm fine. Let's get this done." Esther led him down the hall. Their footsteps echoed on marble floors. Everything here echoed, empty, cold. The conference room had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Lagos Central Business District. The city stretched out below like a game board. Buildings and streets and tiny cars, all of it looking small and far away. Richard Adderwale sat at the head of the table. 50 years old, silver hair, $10,000 suit. 4 lawyers flanking him like guards. "Derek." Adderwale stood, extending his hand. His smile didn't reach his eyes. It never did. "Cutting it close, aren't we?" Derek shook his hand. The grip was firm, competitive. Everything was a contest with Adderwale. "Car trouble in this weather, you're lucky you made it." They sat. Papers covered the table. Contracts, projections, $2.3 billion in black and white. Derek opened his laptop, the presentation he'd spent 3 months perfecting. Every slide memorized, every number ready, but his hands felt heavy on the keyboard. "Shall we begin?" Adderwale said. It wasn't really a question. Derek stood, clicked to the first slide. "Rocky Mountain Hotel chain represents a significant opportunity in the hospitality sector." His voice sounded hollow, like someone else was speaking. 15 properties across 5 states, projected annual revenue of $470 million. He clicked through slides, market analysis, growth projections, cost savings. The words came automatically. He'd practiced this speech so many times it meant nothing now, just sounds, just noise. Derek looked around the room, Adderwale watching him with those calculating eyes, the lawyers taking notes, Esther nodding from the doorway. Everyone here was rich, everyone here was successful, and no one here would stop to help a stranger fix his car. The synergies with our existing portfolio, Derek heard himself say, will reduce operational costs by 18% in year one. More slides, more numbers, more meaningless words. In his mind, he saw David's bare hands on the lug wrench, red from cold, working without complaint, working for nothing. Derek, he blinked. Adderwale was staring at him. Sorry, what? I asked about the timeline for integration. Right, timeline. Derek looked at his slide. The words blurred. 6 to 8 months for full integration. He finished the presentation on autopilot. When it was done, Adderwale stood and applauded. Slow, deliberate. Excellent work, Derek. Very thorough. The lawyers nodded, shuffled papers, ready for the signing. They moved to the far end of the table. Someone handed Derek a pen, a Mont Blanc, $2,000. He'd bought it last week specifically for this moment. Sign here, a lawyer said, pointing. And here, initial here. Derek put pen to paper. His hand shook. He signed page after page, his signature getting sloppier each time. When it was done, Adderwale shook his hand again, harder this time, the grip of a winner. Congratulations, Derek. This is going to be very profitable for both of us. Yes, we should celebrate. Drinks at the Capitol. My treat. Derek looked at Adderwale's smile, at the lawyers packing their briefcases, at Esther giving him a thumbs up. This was it. The moment he'd been working toward for 8 months. $2.3 billion, the deal that would cement his legacy, and he felt nothing. No, that wasn't right. He felt something. He felt empty. Actually, Derek said, I need to go. Adderwale's smile faltered. Go? We just closed the biggest deal of the quarter. I know, but I have something I need to do, something more important than this. Derek paused. 24 hours ago, nothing was more important than this. This deal was everything. But now he couldn't stop thinking about 3 boys who measured wealth by how many people would cry at your funeral. Yes, Derek said quietly. Something more important. He walked out, left Adderwale standing there confused. Esther called after him, but he didn't stop. Derek took the stairs, all 47 floors. His legs burned, his lungs screamed, but he needed to feel something, anything. By the time he reached the parking garage, he was breathing hard, sweating despite the cold. He got in his Rolls-Royce, sat there, engine off, just sitting in the dark. The passenger seat was still wet from the rain. He could see where they'd worked. Grease marks on the doorframe where David had steadied himself. A small handprint, child-sized. Derek put his head on the steering wheel. He just closed a $2.3 billion deal, the biggest of his career. His name would be in the Wall Street Journal tomorrow. His competitors would be calling jealous and congratulating him at the same time. But all he could think about was David's father, a mechanic who died with nothing but left everything that mattered. How many people would cry at Derek's funeral? His assistant would probably be relieved. His competitors would pretend to be sad. His board members would worry about their stock options. But who would actually cry? Who would actually miss him? Derek couldn't think of anyone. He pulled out his phone, typed Arepo, Ogun State into the search bar. Population 2,043. 42 miles from Lagos mainland CBD. Derek started the engine. He didn't know what he was doing, didn't know what he'd say if he found them. But he couldn't go back to Ikoyi. Couldn't go back to his empty penthouse and his empty life and pretend everything was fine because it wasn't fine. For the first time in 25 years, Derek Williams had everything he'd ever wanted and realized it wasn't what he needed. He drove out of the parking garage. The sky was clearing, patches of blue breaking through the gray. His phone buzzed, Esther calling, then Adderwale, then 3 board members. Derek ignored them all. He drove toward Arepo, toward 3 boys who'd refused his money, toward something he couldn't name, but desperately needed to find. The highway stretched ahead, mountains in the distance. Derek pressed harder on the gas. Behind him, the Lagos CBD disappeared, the Paramount Tower getting smaller in his rearview mirror, the city of glass and steel and empty success fading away. Ahead somewhere in a small town he'd never heard of until today. 3 boys were probably clearing floodwater for an elderly woman, not getting paid, not asking for anything, just helping because it was right. Derek's chest felt tight. His eyes burned. He'd spent his whole life climbing, building, achieving, becoming someone important. And in 18 minutes, 3 kids on bicycles had shown him he'd been climbing the wrong mountain entirely. The deal was done. The money was his, but for the first time in his life, Derek Williams didn't care about the money. He cared about something else, something those boys had that he didn't, something he needed to understand before it was too late. Derek drove faster toward Arepo, toward answers, toward whatever came next. The highway to Arepo was empty. Derek drove fast, too fast. The speedometer climbed past 80, the landscape blurred. Bush, dark trees, grey sky. His phone kept buzzing. He glanced at the screen. Esther, where are you? Adderwell, Derek, we need to discuss next steps. 3 board members, 2 investors, his lawyer. Derek turned the phone off, threw it on the passenger seat. For the first time in his career, he didn't care about next steps. Didn't care about follow-up meetings or press releases or any of it. He just drove. The sign appeared after 30 minutes. Arepo, 10 miles. Derek's hands tightened on the wheel. What was he doing? What was he going to say to these kids? Hey, you fixed my car and now I'm having an existential crisis. But he kept driving. The town appeared slowly. First, a gas station, then a few houses scattered along the road, then Main Street. Derek slowed down. Arepo was small, really small. 1 stoplight, a grocery store, a hardware store, a diner called Rosie's with a faded red sign. The buildings were old, painting, some windows boarded up. This was the kind of town that had seen better days and was still waiting for them to come back. Derek pulled over in front of the diner, turned off the engine. Through the window, he could see people inside, working folks, farmers maybe, wearing flannel and work boots, drinking coffee from thick white mugs. He looked down at his suit, his $2,000 shoes. He didn't belong here, but he got out anyway. The cold hit him immediately, colder than Lagos mainland, the kind of cold that lived in small towns and didn't leave. Derek walked to the diner door. His hand hesitated on the handle. What if they weren't here? What if he'd driven all this way for nothing? He pushed the door open. A bell rang above his head. Everyone turned to look. The diner went quiet. 10 pairs of eyes staring at him, at his suit, at his shoes, at everything about him that screamed outsider. Derek stood frozen in the doorway. Then he saw them. Corner booth, 3 boys, David, Peter, and Sam, sitting over plates of burgers and fries, talking and laughing. David looked up. His eyes went wide. The Rolls-Royce guy. The diner stayed quiet, everyone watching. Derek walked over. His shoes clicked on the old linoleum floor. Each step felt like a mile. Hi, Derek said when he reached their booth. Hey, David said, surprised. Your car okay? Yeah, thanks to you. The 3 boys looked at each other confused. What are you doing here? Peter asked. Derek opened his mouth, closed it. What was he doing here? I don't know, he said honestly. Sam grinned. You drove all the way back here and you don't know why. I needed to talk to you, to thank you properly. You already tried to thank us, David said. We told you we didn't need your money. I know, but Derek looked around. Everyone was still staring. Can we talk somewhere private? The boys exchanged glances again, some silent conversation Derek wasn't part of. Okay, David said finally, but we have to finish our food first. You want something? Derek looked at their plates. Cheap diner burgers, maybe $5 each. The kind of meal he hadn't eaten in 20 years. Sure, he said. David scooted over. Derek sat down. The vinyl booth was cracked. Duct tape held one corner together. A waitress appeared, 60 years old, tired eyes. Name tag said, Betty. What'll it be, honey? Coffee, black, and whatever they're having. Betty looked at his suit, raised an eyebrow, but she didn't say anything, just wrote it down and walked away. Derek sat there. The boys ate their burgers. Nobody spoke. The diner slowly went back to normal. Conversation started up again. The moment passed. So, Sam said through a mouthful of fries, did you make your meeting? Yeah, that's good. Was it important? Derek thought about the contracts, the signatures, the $2.3 billion. I thought it was, he said. Peter pushed his glasses up. What does that mean? It means... Derek stopped. How did he explain this? It means I signed the biggest deal of my career this morning. Made more money than most people see in a lifetime. And I drove here instead of celebrating. The boys stared at him. Why? David asked. Because you three refused $500. Because you helped me for nothing. Because... Derek's voice got quieter. Because I can't stop thinking about what you said about your father, about measuring wealth. Betty returned with his coffee and burger. Set them down without a word. Derek wrapped his hands around the hot mug. The warmth felt good. Your father, Derek said, looking at David. Sounds like he understood something I've spent my whole life missing. What's that? What actually matters? The words hung in the air. David put down his burger. You drove 42 miles to tell us that? I drove 42 miles because I don't know what else to do. Sam laughed. Not mean, just surprised. Man, you're weird. Sam, Peter said. He's right, Derek said. I am weird. At least I'm starting to think I've been doing everything wrong. David studied him. Really looked at him like he was trying to figure something out. You want to help? David said. It wasn't a question. Yes. We told you we don't need money. I know. But there has to be something. Something I can do. The three boys looked at each other again. That silent conversation. Finally, David spoke. There might be something. What? It's not for us, though. I don't care. What is it? David hesitated. There's this community center in town, a Repo youth center. We go there after school, a lot of kids do. Okay. It's falling apart, Peter said. Like really falling apart. The roof leaks. The heating barely works. The playground equipment is so old it's dangerous. They've been trying to raise money to fix it, Sam added. But it's a small town. People don't have much to give. Derek leaned forward. How much do they need? I don't know. A lot, probably. Can you show me? The boys looked surprised. You want to see it? David asked. Yes, right now, if that's okay. David looked at his friends. Peter shrugged. Sam nodded. Okay, David said. It's only a few blocks from here. Derek pulled out his wallet, put a $50 bill on the table for the food. That's way too much, Peter said. Betty probably hasn't had a tip like that in a while, Derek said. Let her have it. They walked out of the diner. The cold felt sharper now, the wind picking up again. The boys led him down Main Street, past the hardware store, past a laundromat, past empty storefronts with for rent signs in the windows. 5 blocks. That's all it took to walk the entire length of a Repo's downtown. They turned onto a side street and there it was, a Repo youth center. Derek stopped walking. The building was 1-story brick. The paint was faded and peeling. The roof had visible patches, tarps, and plywood covering holes. The front steps were cracked. One window was covered with cardboard. A sign hung crooked by the door. A Repo youth center estimated 1967. 58 years old, and it looked like it might not make it to 59. It's worse than I thought, Derek said quietly. Yeah, David said, but it's all we've got. It's where we go after school. Where we do homework. Where we hang out when it's too cold to be outside. How many kids use it? Maybe 80, 90? A lot of them are from single-parent homes. This place is kind of like, I don't know, a safe place. Derek walked closer. The playground was behind the building. He could see it through a chain-link fence. Old swing set. The chains rusted. A slide with a crack down the middle. A jungle gym missing half its bars. Can we go inside? Derek asked. If Miss Esther's here, Peter said. She runs the place. They walked to the door. David knocked. A moment later, it opened. A black woman stood there. 50s maybe. Tired eyes but a warm smile. She wore a thick sweater and fingerless gloves. Boys? She said. Then she saw Derek. Oh, hello, Miss Esther. This is... David hesitated. I don't even know your name. Derek, he said, extending his hand. Derek Williams? Esther shook it. Her hand was cold, even through his. Is the heat not working? Derek asked. Esther smiled sadly. Not since Tuesday. The furnace is old, needs to be replaced. We're using space heaters, but they barely help. Can I see inside? Esther looked at him, at his expensive suit, his perfect shoes, trying to figure out what this man wanted. Sure, she said finally. Come in. Derek stepped inside and saw exactly what these boys in this town needed. The inside of a Repo youth center was colder than outside. Derek could see his breath. His expensive wool coat suddenly felt inadequate. Esther led them through the entrance hall, her fingerless gloves stark against the dim lighting. We're trying to keep the main room warm, she explained, pushing open a door. That's where most of the kids are. The main room was large, maybe 40 feet by 60. Folding tables scattered throughout, mismatched chairs, old couches with springs poking through, and kids, dozens of them. Some did homework, others drew. A group in the corner played cards. They all wore jackets, hats, and gloves. Inside, 3 space heaters glowed orange in different corners. Derek could hear them humming, working overtime, barely making a dent in the cold. How long has the heat been out? Derek asked. This time, 5 days. Esther wrapped her sweater tighter. But it's been breaking down all winter. The furnace is from 1985. We fixed it probably 20 times. Last week the repair guy said, it's done. Needs to be replaced completely. Derek looked around. Water stains on the ceiling. Brown patches spreading like maps. In one corner a bucket caught drips from a leak. The roof too. The roof. The heating, the plumbing, the electrical. Esther's voice was tired but steady. She'd said these words before, probably to anyone who'd listen. The whole building needs work. A small girl, maybe 8 years old, walked up to Esther. She wore a pink coat with a broken zipper. Miss Esther, the bathroom sink isn't working again. Which one, sweetie? The girl's room. Esther sighed. Okay, use the one in the office for now. The girl nodded and ran off. Let me show you the rest, Esther said. They walked through the building, each room worse than the last. The computer lab had 6 computers, all of them from 2008. Derek could see the dust, the yellowed plastic. 3 had out-of-order signs taped to them. We used to have 12, Esther said, but they died one by one. No money to replace them. The library was next. Shelves are half empty. The books that remained were falling apart. Torn covers, missing pages, copyright dates from the 1970s and 80s. The county used to send us books, Esther explained, but budget cuts. They haven't sent anything in 3 years. David spoke up. I learned to read here when I was 6. Me too, Peter said. Same, Sam added. Derek looked at the boys, then at the sad little library that had given them one of the most important gifts in life. The gym was small. 1 basketball hoop, no net. The backboard was cracked. The floor was wood but warped from water damage. In some places you could see the concrete underneath. We can't use it when it rains, Esther said. Water comes through the roof, takes days to dry. The kitchen was last. Old appliances, a refrigerator that hummed too loudly, a stove with only 2 working burners, cabinets that didn't close right. We used to serve dinner 3 times a week, Esther said. Hot meals for kids who might not get them at home, but we had to stop 6 months ago. Can't afford the food. Can barely afford to keep the lights on. They walked back to the main room. Derek stood in the doorway watching the kids. They were laughing, playing, doing homework, making the best of what they had. How many kids come here? Derek asked. On a good day, 80, sometimes 90, and they're all from Arepo, most of them, some from the surrounding area. A lot are from single-parent homes. Parents working 2, 3 jobs. Kids come here after school so they're not home alone. We keep them safe, give them a place to be. Derek turned to her. What happens if this place closes? Esther's face went hard. Not angry, just determined. It won't close. But if the building is falling apart, then I'll hold it up with my bare hands if I have to. Her voice was still. These kids need this place. Some of them, this is the only stable thing in their lives, the only place they feel safe. I won't let it close. Derek believed her. This woman would fight until there was nothing left to fight with. How much? Derek asked. What? How much money do you need to fix everything? Esther laughed. It came out bitter. You want the honest number or the number I tell people so they don't walk away? The honest number? She pulled a phone from her pocket. Old iPhone, cracked screen, pulled up a document, handed it to Derek. He looked at the spreadsheet. It was detailed, organized, every repair itemized with cost estimates, new roof and structural repairs, $150,000, new heating and cooling system, $65,000, electrical upgrades, $35,000, plumbing repairs, $25,000, new computers and equipment, $40,000, kitchen appliances and renovation, $30,000, playground equipment, $45,000. Operating costs for 1 year, $50,000. Total, $440,000. Derek stared at the number. We've been fundraising for 2 years, Esther said quietly. We've raised $23,000. It's not enough to fix anything major, it just keeps us limping along. $23,000 in 2 years, Derek repeated. This is a small town, Mr. Williams. People here don't have much. They give what they can. $5, $10, whatever they can spare, but it's not enough. It'll never be enough. Derek handed back her phone. His hand was shaking slightly. $440,000. 2 years ago, he'd spent more than that on a weekend vacation in Dubai. Last month, he'd bought a watch for $300,000 because it was rare. And this woman had spent 2 years scraping together $23,000 to keep a building from collapsing on 80 kids who had nowhere else to go. Can I sit down? Derek asked. Of course. Esther led him to one of the worn couches. Derek sat. The springs poked him through the cushion. He didn't care. The 3 boys sat nearby, watching him, waiting. A group of kids ran past, laughing. One of them bumped Derek's knee. Sorry, mister. It's okay, Derek said. He watched them go, watched them disappear into another room, their laughter echoing. Mr. Williams, Esther said. Are you all right? Derek realized his eyes were burning. He blinked hard. I closed a deal this morning, he said. $2.3 billion. Esther's eyes widened. So did the boys. That's a lot of money, Esther said carefully. It is. It's more money than I know what to do with. And you know what I felt when I signed the papers? What? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Derek looked at her. But I come here. I see this place, I see these kids, and I feel everything. Esther sat down next to him. Why did you come to a repo, Mr. Williams, really? Derek looked at David, at Peter, at Sam. These 3 boys fixed my car this morning in a flood. I offered them $500. They refused. Of course they did, Esther said softly. Why, of course, because their parents taught them right. David's father especially. She smiled at David. John Davis was the best man I ever knew. He helped build the center, volunteered here every Saturday for 15 years. David's eyes got bright. He fixed things, Esther continued. Painted walls, repaired equipment, never asked for a penny. When he died, we all cried for days. This whole town did. Derek felt something break in his chest. These boys learned from him, Esther said. They come here twice a week, help clean, play with the younger kids, tutor them in math. They're good boys, the kind of boys that make you believe the world might be okay after all. Derek looked at David. You didn't tell me you volunteered here. David shrugged. You didn't ask. What else don't I know? Peter spoke up. Sam tutors the little kids in reading every Tuesday. I help with homework on Thursdays. David fixes things like his dad did. And none of you get paid. Why would we? Sam asked. This place gave us so much. It's just giving back. Derek stood up, walked to the window. Outside he could see the broken playground, water stains covering the rusted equipment. He thought about his penthouse in Ikoyi. 15,000 square feet. Views of Lagos Lagoon worth $30 million. Empty except for him. He thought about his garage. 5 cars. Each one worth more than most people's houses. Cars he barely drove. He thought about his watch collection, his art, his wine cellar with bottles he'd never drink. All of it meaning nothing. Mr. Williams, Esther said. Derek turned around. I'll pay for it, he said. Pay for what? All of it. The roof, the heating, the computers, the playground, everything on your list. Esther's mouth fell open. You what? I'll cover the full renovation. $440,000. The boy stood up. Are you serious? David asked. I'm serious, but that's so much money, Esther whispered. It's nothing. Derek's voice was firm. It's nothing compared to what this place is worth, what you're worth, what these kids are worth. Esther put her hand over her mouth, her eyes filled with tears. Why? She asked. Why would you do this? Derek looked at the three boys. Because this morning, I learned what it means to be rich, and it has nothing to do with money in a bank account. It has everything to do with this, with helping, with connecting, with making someone's life better. A tear rolled down Esther's cheek. These boys, Derek continued, they refused my money because they wanted to honor their father's memory, because he taught them that kindness isn't a transaction. It's a connection. And I want to be part of that. I want to connect. I want to help. I want to be the kind of person who makes the world better, not just richer. Esther stood up, walked to Derek and hugged him. She was crying now. Really crying. Thank you. She sobbed into his shoulder. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Derek hugged her back. He couldn't remember the last time he'd hugged someone who wasn't trying to get something from him. The boys stood there stunned. Kids in the room were staring now, wondering what was happening. Esther pulled back, wiping her eyes. I'm sorry, we've been trying so hard for so long. I thought we were going to lose this place. I thought, you're not going to lose it, Derek said firmly. I promise you this place will be here for these kids and for the next generation and the one after that. David stepped forward. Mr. Williams, I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. You already taught me everything I needed to know. We just fixed your car. No, Derek said. You fixed a lot more than that. Sam was grinning. Peter was crying behind his taped-up glasses. When can you start? Esther asked, her voice shaking with hope. I'll make calls tomorrow. Get contractors out here. Best ones I can find. We'll have this place fixed up in, Derek thought, 2 months, maybe 3. But we'll do it right. I can't believe this is happening, Esther whispered. A little girl tugged on Esther's sleeve, the same one from before. Miss Esther, why are you crying? Esther laughed and cried at the same time. She knelt down to the girl's level. I'm crying because something wonderful just happened, sweetie. What happened? Esther looked up at Derek. An angel showed up. Derek felt his throat tighten. Nobody had ever called him an angel before. He'd been called ruthless, brilliant, cutthroat. Never an angel. I'm not an angel, Derek said. I'm just a guy who's been doing everything wrong and finally figured it out. More kids were gathering now, sensing something important was happening. Is the heat going to work? One boy asked hopefully. Yes, Esther said, laughing through tears. The heat's going to work and the roof. Yes, and we can play on the playground again. Yes, baby, all of it, everything. The kids erupted in cheers. They jumped and shouted and hugged each other. Derek watched them. These kids who had so little celebrating like they'd won the lottery. And in a way they had. But so had he. Derek Williams had spent 25 years chasing success, building an empire, climbing higher and higher until he could look down on the world. But these 3 boys on bicycles had shown him something his Stanford education never could. The view was better from down here among real people, helping, connecting, being human. David walked over to him. My dad would have really liked you, he said quietly. Derek felt tears threatening again. I wish I could have met him. Maybe you did, David said. In a way, through us, he's still here in what he taught us, in what we're teaching you. Derek smiled. He raised a wise son. He raised a son who knows that being rich isn't about money. It's about this. David gestured around the room at the celebrating kids, at Esther crying happy tears, at his 2 best friends grinning like idiots. Yeah, Derek said softly. It's about this. And for the first time in his life, Derek Williams understood what it meant to be truly wealthy. Derek stayed in a Repo that night. Not at a hotel. There wasn't one. He stayed at the Pine Motel, a small place on the edge of town. $25 a night. The heater rattled, the mattress sagged, the TV only got 3 channels. It was perfect. He lay in bed that night staring at the water-stained ceiling and couldn't stop smiling. His phone was still off. He didn't care about the messages piling up, didn't care about the deals waiting, didn't care about any of it. For the first time in years, Derek Williams slept soundly. The next morning, he was up at 6 o'clock. Made calls, lots of calls. David, Derek Williams, I need the best construction crew you've got. Ogun State, a small town called Oripo. Yes, I know it's short notice. Double their usual rate. Triple it if you have to. I need them there by Monday. Another call. Jennifer, I need you to source new computers. 15 of them. Top of the line, but kid-friendly. Educational software included. Yes, for a school community center. Actually, have them delivered to Arepo, Ogun State, by next Friday. Another call. Tom, it's Derek. I need playground equipment. Commercial grade, safe, colorful, the works. Budget. There is no budget, just make it amazing. Call after call after call. By 9 a.m., Derek had set everything in motion. Contractors, equipment suppliers, electricians, plumbers, all the best people he knew, all heading to Arepo. He walked back to the community center. The cold morning air felt clean, crisp. Esther was already there, unlocking the front door. Mr. Williams, she said, surprised. You're up early. Couldn't sleep. Too excited, she smiled. Come in, coffee is about to brew. Inside, Derek watched as kids started arriving. Dropped off by parents heading to work, walking in groups, coming on bikes like David, Peter, and Sam did. They all looked cold. All wore old coats. Some had holes in their gloves, but they were smiling, happy to be here. This place is their second home, Esther said, watching them. For some of them, it's better than their first home. How long have you been running this place? Derek asked. 12 years. Started as a volunteer. Then the old director retired and I took over. Haven't looked back since. You love it. With everything I have. Esther poured 2 cups of coffee, handed one to Derek. The mug had a chip on the rim. These kids, Mr. Williams, they're everything to me. I never had children of my own, but I have 80 of them now. Derek sipped the coffee. It was terrible, weak and bitter. He loved it. The 3 boys arrived around 9:30. David saw Derek and stopped. You're still here. Of course we have work to do. Work? I need your help, all 3 of you, if you're willing. The boys looked at each other. Peter pushed his glasses up. What kind of help? I've got contractors coming on Monday, but I don't know this place like you do. I need you to show them everything. Every leak, every crack, every problem. Can you do that? David nodded slowly. Yeah, we can do that. Good. Also, I need your opinion on the playground equipment. What do kids here actually want to play on? Sam's eyes lit up. You're asking us? Who better? You know these kids, I don't. Man, Sam said, grinning, this is wild. Esther emerged from the office with a worn notebook. I've been making lists all night. Every repair we need, every upgrade. I couldn't stop thinking about it. She handed the notebook to Derek. Pages and pages of notes, detailed, organized. Years of watching this building fall apart, all documented. This is perfect, Derek said. I was thinking, Esther said carefully, about the kitchen. If we could get it working again, we could restart the meal program. Tuesday and Thursday dinners, nothing fancy, just hot food for kids who need it. Do it. But the cost, Esther. Derek looked at her. Money isn't the issue anymore. If these kids need hot meals, they get hot meals. What else? Esther's eyes watered. A new library? Real books? Current books? Maybe even some computers in there so kids can read e-books too. Done. What else? Art supplies. We used to have an art program, but we couldn't afford materials anymore. You'll have materials. Best quality. What else? Esther laughed, wiping her eyes. I feel like I'm dreaming. You're not. This is real. This is happening. What else do these kids need? The boys had been listening quietly. David spoke up. Warm clothing, he said. Derek turned to him. Warm clothing. A lot of kids here. Their clothes are old, too small, full of holes. Harmattan in Ogun State is brutal. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe we could have a clothing closet. Free clothes for any kid who needs one. Derek felt his chest tighten. Yes, absolutely. Yes, and gloves, Peter added. And hats and boots. All of it, Derek said firmly. Make a list. Everything these kids need, we'll get it. Sam looked at Esther. Miss Esther, remember how the van broke down, the one we used for field trips? The transmission died 6 months ago, Esther explained. We had to sell it for scrap. Now we can't take the kids anywhere. New van, Derek said. Big enough for everyone. What else? For the next hour, they made lists. Derek typed everything into his phone. Every need, every want, every dream these people had for this place. By 11, the list was 3 pages long. This is going to cost way more than $440,000, Esther said nervously. I don't care, but Mr. Williams, call me Derek, please. Esther smiled. Derek, this is so generous, but you don't have to do all this. Yes, I do. Derek's voice was firm. I've spent 25 years making money. Now I want to spend some of it on something that actually matters. A crash came from the main room. All of them rushed out. A section of ceiling had fallen. Not much, maybe 3 feet of drywall and insulation. It had missed the kids by several feet, but everyone was scared. A little boy was crying. A girl hugged him, trying to calm him down. Esther ran over. Is anyone hurt? No, Miss Esther, the girl said, but it was really loud. Derek looked up at the hole in the ceiling. Through it he could see the sky. The roof was worse than he thought. That's it, Derek said. Everyone out now. What? Esther turned to him. This building isn't safe. That ceiling could have hit someone. We're closing this place down until the renovations are done. But the kids need somewhere to go. I know. Give me a few hours. Derek was already pulling out his phone. I'll figure something out. He stepped outside, made more calls. 20 minutes later, he walked back in. Okay. I talked to Pastor James at a Repo Community Church. They're opening their basement to you free of charge. It's warm. It's safe. You can use it until this place is fixed. Esther stared. Pastor James agreed to that? I may have mentioned I donate $50,000 to the church's food bank. Derek. These kids need a safe place. Now they have one. He looked around at the children. Some still looked scared from the ceiling collapse. Let's get everyone moved over there today. The rest of the day was chaos. Good chaos. David, Peter, and Sam helped organize the kids. Esther coordinated with the church. Derek paid for pizza, 30 pizzas from the only pizza place in town. The owner was shocked by the order. By evening, the community center was empty. Everything important had been moved to the church basement. Derek stood in the empty building one last time, looking at the water stains, the cracks, the holes. We're going to make you beautiful again, he said to the building. To no one, to everyone. His phone buzzed. He'd turned it back on an hour ago. 73 messages, 12 voicemails. He scrolled through them. Esther, Adewale, board members, investors, all wanting to know where he was, what he was doing, why he disappeared. Derek typed a message to his assistant. Taking a leave of absence, 2 months, maybe 3. Cancel everything. I'll explain later. He hit send before he could second guess it. Another message, this one to his lawyer. Set up a foundation, the Davis Family Foundation. Endowment of $20 million. Purpose, supporting community centers and youth programs in small towns. Start with a repo. I'll send details tomorrow. Send. Derek looked at his phone, at his old life contained in this device. All those emails, all those deals, all that emptiness. He turned it off again. David walked up. You okay? Yeah, Derek said. Better than okay. What you're doing here, it's amazing. What your father did was amazing. I'm just finally learning the lesson. They walked outside together. The sun was setting. The sky turned orange and pink. Beautiful. Can I ask you something? David said. Anything. Why are you really doing this? I mean, I'm grateful. We all are. But you don't know us. You don't know this town. Why do you care so much? Derek thought about it. Really thought. Because yesterday morning I had everything. He said slowly. Money, power, success, everything I'd ever wanted. And I was miserable. I was empty. I'd spent so long climbing that I forgot why I was climbing in the first place. He looked at David. Then you 3 showed up in a flood and helped me for nothing.
And your father's words about measuring wealth by who cries at your funeral. It broke something open in me, made me see what I'd become, what I'd lost. What had you lost? My humanity, Derek said quietly. I turned into a machine.
Everything was a transaction. Everyone wanted something from me or I wanted something from them. There was no real connection, no real kindness, just business. A cold wind blew. Derek didn't mind it anymore. But you three, he continued, you gave me something without wanting anything back. You showed me that people like your father still exist, that kindness still exists, that there's still good in this world, and I want to be part of that good. I want to be someone who gives, who helps, who connects. David smiled. My dad used to say that the best moment in life is when you stop taking and start giving. He was right. They stood in silence for a moment, the sky getting darker,
stars starting to appear. He'd be proud of you, Derek said. Your father, very proud. Thanks, David said softly. That means everything. Esther walked out, locking the church basement door. The kids had all gone home. It had been a long day. Derek, where are you staying tonight? She asked.
The Pine Motel. That place is awful. It's perfect. Esther laughed. You're a strange man, Derek Williams. I'm working on being a better man. Strange is part of the process. Peter and Sam emerged from the church. All 5 of them stood there in the parking lot. So, Monday the contractors arrived, Peter asked. Monday, Derek confirmed. And I'll be here to supervise, make sure everything is done right. You're staying in a repo? Sam asked, surprised. For as long as it takes. This is my project now. My purpose. I'm not leaving until it's finished. The boys looked at each other, then at Derek. You're really serious about this, David said. More serious than I've been about anything in my life. Esther smiled. Then welcome to a repo, Derek. Welcome home. Home. Derek turned the word over in his mind. He had a penthouse in Ikoyi worth $30 million, but it had never felt like home. This place, this small town in Ogun State with its broken buildings and struggling people and beautiful hearts. This felt like home. Thank you, Derek said, for letting me be part of this. Thank you, Esther said, for being exactly what we needed. They said their goodbyes, made plans for Monday. Then everyone went their separate ways. Derek drove back to the Pine Motel. The vacancy sign flickered. The parking lot had 3 cars. He went inside his room, sat on the sagging bed, looked around at the peeling wallpaper and the rattling heater, and smiled. Tomorrow, the real work would begin, fixing the community center, helping these kids, building something that mattered. But tonight, Derek Williams, billionaire CEO, ruthless businessman, felt something he hadn't felt in 25 years. Peace. Real, genuine peace. He lay back on the uncomfortable mattress and stared at the ceiling. Somewhere in Lagos, his old life was waiting. Board meetings, acquisitions, deals worth billions. But Derek was done with that life. He'd found something better. He'd found purpose. And he was never going back. 2 months later, Derek stood in the parking lot of a Repo Youth Center, watching the sun rise over Ogun State. The building behind him looked completely different. New roof, dark shingles that gleamed in the early light. No more tarps, no more patches, just solid weatherproof protection. Fresh paint. The brick had been cleaned and repainted a warm beige color. The trim was forest green. It looked alive again. New windows, all of them. Clear glass that actually kept the cold out. And inside, Derek smiled. Just thinking about it, inside was even better. Coffee. Derek turned. Esther stood there holding 2 steaming mugs. She looked different too, less tired. The constant worry that had lived in her eyes for years was gone. Thanks, Derek said, taking a cup. They stood together in silence, watching the sunrise. I still can't believe it's done, Esther said softly. Believe it. 2 months. You did all this in 2 months, Derek shrugged. I had good help, and unlimited budget helps too. It's more than that. You were here every single day, working alongside the contractors, getting your hands dirty. I've never seen anything like it. It was true. Derek had stayed in a repo the entire 2 months, working, planning, helping. He'd swung hammers, painted walls, and carried supplies. His expensive suits stayed in his Range Rover untouched. He lived in jeans and work boots now. His hands, which had only ever signed contracts, now had calluses. He loved it. "Today the big day," Esther said. "The kids come back." "Are you nervous?" "Terrified. What if they don't like it?" Derek laughed.
"They're going to lose their minds." A truck pulled into the parking lot, then another and another. David, Peter, and Sam got out of the third truck, David's uncle's vehicle. The boys had been here every day too. After school, weekends, helping however they could. They'd painted the entire rec room themselves.
It had taken them a week. "Morning," David called out. "Morning," Derek replied. "Ready for the unveiling?" "Been ready for weeks," Sam said, grinning. More people arrived, volunteers from town, parents, and teachers. Word had spread about what Derek was doing. People wanted to help. They'd shown up with food for the workers, with supplies, with their time. Arepo had embraced Derek, this stranger who'd appeared out of nowhere and decided to stay. At 8 a.m., Esther unlocked the front door. "Want to do one last walkthrough before the kids arrive?" she asked Derek. "Yeah, let's do it." They went inside. The entrance hall took Derek's breath away every time. New floors, polished wood that gleamed. The walls were painted a soft yellow, bright, welcoming. Artwork from the kids hung in frames, real frames, not taped to the walls. A new sign hung above the main room entrance. John Davis Memorial Hall. David had cried when he saw it. They walked into the main room. It was completely transformed. New furniture, comfortable couches, study tables with proper chairs, beanbags in the corner. Everything was colorful, inviting, warm. The heating worked. God did it work. Radiant floor heating, energy efficient. The temperature was perfect. "The kids won't have to wear jackets inside anymore," Esther said, her voice thick with emotion. The computer lab was next. 15 brand new computers, large monitors, fast processors, educational software installed on every machine, high-speed internet. Derek had paid to have a fiber optic run to the building. "They can do anything on these computers." Derek said, "Research, college applications, learn coding, whatever they need." The library made Esther cry again. She'd cried at least once a day for 2 months. New shelves, hundreds of new books, current books, diverse books, books about science, history, adventure, fantasy, a reading nook with comfortable chairs, soft lighting. It looked like something from a magazine. "This is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen," Esther whispered. The gym floor was completely redone. New basketball hoops with actual nets. The walls were painted with a mural, local landmarks and kids playing. Local artist Derek had commissioned it. The kitchen gleamed. New appliances, industrial refrigerator, 6-burner stove, double ovens, enough to cook meals for 100 kids. "We start serving dinners again next week," Esther said. "Tuesday and Thursday, just like old times." "Better than old times," Derek corrected. The bathrooms were updated, new fixtures, fresh paint. Everything worked, everything was clean and bright. They walked back to the entrance. Derek checked his watch. 8:45. "They'll be here soon," he said. Esther nodded. She looked nervous, excited, terrified all at once. "Derek," she said quietly, "how can we ever thank you? You don't have to thank me, but we do. You've given these kids so much. You've given this town so much. You've given me—" Her voice broke. "You've given me hope again." Derek felt his own throat tighten. "You gave me something more important. You gave me purpose. Before I came here, I was rich and empty. Now I'm still rich, but I'm full. That's priceless." A car pulled up outside, then another, then 5 more. "They're here," Peter said from the doorway. Derek and Esther walked outside. Cars and trucks filled the parking lot. Families poured out. Kids of all ages, parents, grandparents. It seemed like the whole town had shown up. The kids stared at the building, mouths open, eyes wide. "Is that really the center?" a little girl asked her mother. "That's really it, baby?" The crowd gathered in front of the main entrance. 80 kids, 30 parents. More people kept arriving. Esther stepped forward. Someone handed her a microphone. They'd set up a small PA system for this. "Good morning, everyone." Esther said, her voice shook slightly. "Good morning, Miss Esther," the kids shouted back. "As you can see, we've been busy these last 2 months." Laughter rippled through the crowd. "And it's all thanks to one very special person, Mr. Derek Williams." Everyone turned to look at Derek. He felt his face get hot. 2 months ago, Esther continued, Derek drove into a repo and decided to change our lives. He funded a complete renovation of this center. Not because he had to, not because we asked, but because 3 boys showed him what kindness looks like. She gestured to David, Peter, and Sam. They looked embarrassed and proud at the same time. Derek stayed here for 2 months, worked alongside the contractors, got his hands dirty, became part of our community, and today we get to see what love and generosity can build. The crowd applauded. Derek shifted uncomfortably. He wasn't used to this kind of attention, not for good things anyway. "I want to say something," David said, stepping forward. Esther handed him the microphone. David's voice was steady, strong. "A lot of you knew my dad, John Davis. He taught me that the richest people aren't the ones with the most money. They're the ones who help the most people. Mr. Williams, you've helped all of us. You've honored my father's memory, and I want you to know." His voice cracked. "Dad would have been proud to call you a friend." Derek felt tears burning his eyes. He blinked hard, but they came anyway. The crowd erupted in applause. Real applause from the heart. "Okay," Esther said, laughing and crying at the same time. "Let's go see your new center." She cut a ribbon that David held across the doorway. The kids cheered and rushed inside. Derek stayed outside for a moment, watching them go, listening to their gasps of amazement, their shouts of joy. A hand touched his shoulder. He turned. An older man stood there, late 60s, work-worn hands, kind eyes. "You're Derek?" "Yes, I'm Joe John, David's uncle, John's brother." Derek's breath caught. "It's an honor to meet you." "I wanted to thank you," Joe said. "My brother died trying to help people. That's what killed him, working himself to death for others. And I was angry for a long time. Angry at him for leaving us, for not thinking about his own family." He paused, looked at the building. "But seeing this," Joe continued, "seeing what his lessons did, how they inspired his son, how they inspired you, I understand now. John didn't die for nothing. His kindness didn't end with him. It multiplied through David, through you, through all of this." The old man's eyes were wet. "Thank you for honoring my brother. Thank you for showing these kids that goodness still exists in the world." Derek couldn't speak. He just nodded. Joe shook his hand firmly, then walked inside. "You coming?" Esther called from the doorway. Derek wiped his eyes. "Yeah, coming." Inside was chaos, beautiful chaos. Kids ran everywhere, touching everything, testing the new computers, jumping on the beanbags, running their hands along the books in the library. In the gym, a group was already shooting hoops. The ball swished through the new nets. Perfect. A little boy, maybe 7 years old, tugged on Derek's sleeve. "Mr. Derek." Derek knelt down. "Yeah, buddy. Did you really build all this?" "I helped. A lot of people helped." "Why?" The question was so simple, so honest. "Because every kid deserves a safe place to learn and play and grow, and you deserve the best." The boy smiled, missing both front teeth. "Thank you." He ran off to join his friends. Derek stood up, looked around at the chaos, the joy, the life filling this building. Peter appeared next to him. "You did good, Mr. Williams." "We did good," Derek corrected. "Yeah," Peter said, smiling. "We did." Sam ran over. "Mr. Williams, you got to see the playground. It's insane." They went outside to the back of the building. The playground was Derek's favorite part. Brand new equipment, a massive climbing structure with slides and bridges, swings, both regular and accessible swings for kids with disabilities. A merry-go-round, monkey bars, a sandbox, all of it colorful and safe and perfect. Kids were already playing. Their laughter filled the cold air. A girl went down the slide, squealing with delight. At the bottom, she looked up at Derek. "Again, I'm going again." She ran back up, went down again. Pure joy. Derek felt something shift in his chest. This was what it was all about. Not the money, not the deals, not the success. This, making people happy, making lives better, connecting. David stood beside him. My dad always said, playgrounds are where kids learn to be human. They learn to share, to take turns, to help each other, to be brave. Your dad was a wise man, Derek said, the wisest. They watched the kids play for a while. The sun climbed higher. The temperature rose slightly. Not warm, but not bitter either. Esther came outside carrying a large box. Derek, can you help me with something? Sure. She led him back inside to the entrance hall, set the box down. I had something made, she said. For you, for this place, so no one ever forgets what you did here. She pulled out a bronze plaque, shined and polished, engraved with words. A Repo Youth Center renovated 2025 through the generosity of Derek Williams, and in memory of John Davis, who taught us that true wealth is measured in lives changed, not dollars earned. Below the words was an image, a man fixing a car, 3 boys watching and learning. Simple, beautiful. We're mounting it right here, Esther said, pointing to the wall by the entrance. So everyone who comes in sees it, remembers it. Derek read the plaque again, his name next to John's, together. I don't deserve this, he said quietly. You deserve it more than anyone. They mounted the plaque together, used a level to make sure it was straight. When it was done, Derek stepped back and looked at it, his name on a wall. In a small town in Ogun State, meaning something real. This was better than any magazine cover, any business award, any recognition he'd ever received. This meant something. Thank you, Esther. Thank you, Derek. The rest of the day was a celebration. Parents brought food. Someone brought a speaker and played music. Kids danced in the rec room. Adults talked and laughed. Derek found himself surrounded by people wanting to meet him, to thank him, to shake his hand. The owner of the hardware store. If you need anything at all, you let me know. First-time customer discount, 50% off. The teacher from the elementary school. My students want to write you thank you cards. Would that be okay? The pastor from the church. You're welcome at service any Sunday. We'd be honored to have you. One by one, the town embraced him. As evening fell, the crowd started to thin. Families went home for dinner. The center slowly emptied. Derek, Esther, and the 3 boys sat on the new playground equipment watching the sunset, exhausted but happy. I can't believe it's done, Sam said. It's not done, Derek replied. This is just the beginning. What do you mean? David asked. I mean, I've set up a foundation, $20 million to support places like this all over the country, small towns that need help, kids who deserve better. The boys stared at him. $20 million? Peter whispered. $20 million. And Esther, I want you to help run it. Identify communities that need support. You know what struggling centers look like. You know what they need. Esther's hand went to her mouth. Derek, I can't. Yes, you can. You've run this place on nothing for 12 years. Imagine what you could do with real resources. You could change hundreds of lives, thousands. She was crying again. This is too much. It's not enough. It'll never be enough. But it's a start. They sat in silence for a moment. The sky turned orange and pink. Your father would be proud, Derek said to David, of all of this, of you, of what you started that day on the road. We just fixed your car, David said. No, Derek said firmly. You fixed a man, you fixed me, and now I get to help fix things for others. That's your father's legacy. Kindness that multiplies, help that spreads, love that grows. The sun touched the horizon, the first stars appeared. Thank you, David said softly, for everything. Thank you, Derek replied, for showing me what really matters. They sat there until dark, watching the stars come out one by one. And Derek Williams, former billionaire businessman, current part-time carpenter and full-time humanitarian, felt something he'd never felt before. Complete. Whole. Home. 3 weeks after the grand opening, Derek sat in Rosie's diner. Same booth where he'd first sat with the 3 boys. Same cracked vinyl, same chipped coffee mug. Betty still worked the counter, still giving him that knowing smile every morning. Derek had become a regular. Breakfast at Rosie's, then to the center to help Esther with programs, lunch with the kids, afternoons working on the foundation, evenings at the Pine Motel. He still hadn't gone back to Ikoyi, hadn't returned a single business call. His assistant had stopped calling after the first month. His board had held an emergency meeting and voted him on indefinite leave. His competitors were circling his company like sharks, waiting to see if he'd come back. Derek didn't care. The bell above the door rang. David, Peter, and Sam walked in, bringing cold air with them. It was late February now. Still freezing, still beautiful. "Morning, Mr. Williams," David said, sliding into the booth. "How many times do I have to tell you? Call me Derek." "Old habits," David said, grinning. Betty appeared with coffee for all of them. The boys were old enough now, she decided. Besides, it was Nigeria. Kids grew up fast here. "The usual?" she asked. "Please," they all said. Betty walked away. The four of them sat in comfortable silence for a moment. "So," Peter said, pushing his new glasses up. Derek had bought him proper ones last month. "We heard something." "What did you hear?" "That you're thinking about leaving?" Derek took a sip of coffee. News traveled fast in small towns. "Where'd you hear that?" "Miss Esther. She said you've been looking at plane tickets." Derek nodded slowly. "I have to go back eventually. My company, my life. It's all still there waiting." The boys looked disappointed but not surprised. "When?" Sam asked quietly. "Next week, Monday." "That soon?" "I've been here almost 3 months. That's a long time in my world." David stared into his coffee cup. "Are you coming back?" The question hung in the air. "I don't know," Derek admitted. "I want to, but I also have responsibilities. People depending on me, contracts, obligations." "The stuff that doesn't matter," Peter said. Derek laughed, but it came out sad. "Yeah, the stuff that doesn't matter." Betty brought their food. Eggs, bacon, hash browns. The same breakfast Derek had been eating for 3 months. He'd never get tired of it. They ate in silence for a while. The diner filled up with morning regulars, farmers, shop owners, people heading to work. Everyone waved at Derek. He waved back. He knew all their names now, their stories, their struggles, their dreams. "Can I tell you something?" David said suddenly. "Of course." "These last 3 months, watching you here, working with us, helping the center." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "You remind me of my dad." Derek felt his chest tighten. "Not in the way you look or talk," David continued, "but in the way you care, the way you show up, the way you help without expecting anything back. My dad was like that, and now you are too." "I'm trying to be," Derek said softly. "You're succeeding," Peter said. "The kids at the center, they love you. They ask about you every day." "Where's Mr. Derek? Is Mr. Derek coming today?" "You're like, I don't know. Like a dad to all of them." The words hit Derek harder than expected. A dad. He'd never been a father, never been married, never had time for family. He'd been too busy building an empire. But these kids, these 80 kids in Arepo, they'd become his family without him even realizing it. "I don't want to lose that," Derek said, his voice rough. "But I also don't know how to live in 2 worlds. The Derek who built companies and closed billion-dollar deals, he doesn't fit here. And the Derek who lives here doesn't fit there anymore. So choose," Sam said simply. "It's not that simple." "Why not?" Derek opened his mouth to explain all the reasons, the complexity, the obligations, the expectations. But then he stopped. Why wasn't it simple? "My dad used to say," David spoke quietly, "that every person has 2 lives. The life they're living and the life they could be living. And the tragedy is when those 2 lives are completely different and you're stuck in the wrong one." Derek stared at him. "Your dad said that?" "Yeah, right before he died. He told me he was lucky because his 2 lives were the same. He was living exactly the life he wanted, helping people, being with family, making a difference. He said that's all that mattered in the end." Derek felt something break open inside him. A dam he'd been holding back for 3 months. "I've been living the wrong life," he whispered. "For 25 years, I've been living the completely wrong life." The boys didn't say anything. Just let him sit with that truth. "I built a company worth $500 million. Derek continued, his voice getting stronger. I have a penthouse in Ikoyi, cars, art, everything money can buy, and I was miserable. Every single day I was miserable. I just didn't know it because I'd never known anything different. He looked at the three boys. Then you three fixed my car and refused my money and showed me what my life was missing. Connection, purpose, meaning, the things money can't buy. So stay, David said. Stay here, live this life. But my company will survive without you, Peter interrupted. Companies always do. You've got board members, right? Executives. Let them run it. But it's mine. I built it. And now it's time to build something else, Sam said. Something better. Derek looked at these three boys, teenagers, kids, and yet they understood life better than most adults he knew. You're right, Derek said. You're absolutely right. Betty appeared with more coffee. You boys solving the world's problems over here. Just one man's problems, David said. Betty looked at Derek. You staying or going? How does everyone know my business? She laughed. Small town, honey. We all know everything. So what's it going to be? Derek took a deep breath. I'm staying. The boys erupted in cheers, loud enough that the whole diner turned to look. He's staying, Sam announced to everyone. The diner applauded. Derek felt his face get hot, but he was smiling. Does Miss Esther know? Peter asked. Not yet. I only just decided. She's going to cry, David said. She cries at everything. True. They finished breakfast. Derek paid. He always paid. Betty always tried to refuse. It had become a routine. Outside, the February sun was bright, cold but beautiful. The kind of day that made you glad to be alive. So, what are you going to do? David asked as they walked down Main Street. About your company. Sell it, Derek said. The words came easily. I'll sell majority stake to my board. Keep enough to live on. Use the rest for the foundation. How much is the rest? Derek did quick math in his head. After taxes and everything, probably $400 million. The boys stopped walking. $400 million to the foundation? Peter said. Why not? I don't need it. And think about how many communities we could help. How many centers like a repo we could fix. That's insane, Sam said. That's the most insane, amazing, crazy thing I've ever heard. Your father started this, Derek said to David. All of it. His kindness, his lessons, they created a ripple effect. And now that ripple is going to turn into a wave. We're going to help thousands of kids, tens of thousands, all because a mechanic in Ogun State taught his son what really matters. David's eyes were wet. Dad would have loved this. I wish I could have met him. You did, David said. Through us, through his lessons, he's still here, Mr. Williams. Derek, he's still making a difference. They reached the community center. Kids were already arriving for after-school programs. The building looked perfect, alive, exactly what it should be. Esther was at the door greeting kids as they came in. She saw Derek and the boys and waved. Derek, can you help with something? Be right there. He turned to the boys. Tell your uncles, your aunts, everyone. I'm having a dinner at Rosie's tomorrow night, 7 p.m. I want to officially tell the town I'm staying and I want to announce the foundation's plans. We'll spread the word, David said. The boys headed inside. Derek stood outside for a moment, looking at the building. 3 months ago, this place was falling apart. Now it was thriving, full of life and hope and possibility. 3 months ago, Derek was falling apart too. Now he was whole. His phone buzzed, a message from his lawyer. Derek, the board wants an answer. Are you coming back or not? They need to know. Derek typed his response. Not coming back. Start paperwork to sell my majority shares to the executive team. I'll sign whatever you need remotely. I'm staying in Ogun State. He hit send. A weight lifted off his shoulders, the last tie to his old life cut. He was free. Derek, Esther called again. I really need your help. He walked inside. The warmth hit him immediately. Not just from the heating, from the laughter, the voices, the life. Esther stood in the main room looking stressed. The art supplies for the new program arrived, but there are so many boxes. I don't know where to put everything. Show me. They spent the next hour organizing art supplies. Paints, brushes, canvas, clay. Everything kids could need to create. Kids kept interrupting, wanting to show Derek things. A drawing, a test they aced, a story they wrote. He stopped every time, looked at every picture, read every story, celebrated every success. This was his life now. This was what mattered. Around 5 p.m., when most of the kids had gone home, Derek and Esther sat in the new reading nook, exhausted, but happy. "Can I tell you something?" Esther said. "Of course. When you first showed up 3 months ago, I thought you were crazy. Rich man having a midlife crisis, wanting to throw money at a problem to feel better about himself." Derek laughed. "That's not totally wrong. But you proved me wrong. You didn't just throw money at us. You gave us your time, your energy, your heart. You became part of this community, part of this family." She took his hand. Her grip was strong, warm. "These kids love you, Derek. I love you. You're not a stranger anymore. You're one of us. You're home." Derek felt tears threaten. "I am home. I finally found where I belong." "So you're really staying? This isn't just talk. I'm really staying. I'm selling my company, putting everything into the foundation. This is my life now. You, the kids, a repo, all of it." Esther hugged him, held on tight. "Welcome home, Derek," she whispered. "Welcome home." The next night, Rosie's diner was packed, every table full. People standing along the walls. The entire town had shown up. Derek stood near the counter, looking at all the faces. People who'd become friends. People who'd accepted him. People who'd shown him what community really meant. Betty handed him a spoon and a glass. "Speech time, honey." Derek tapped the spoon against the glass. The diner went quiet. "Thank you all for coming," he started. His voice shook slightly. 3 months ago, I drove through a repo as a stranger. A lost, empty stranger who didn't know what he was missing. Then 3 boys. He gestured to David, Peter, and Sam. Showed me what kindness looks like, what real wealth looks like, what matters in life. People nodded, smiled. I came here to say thank you. But I stayed because I found something I'd been searching for my whole life. I found home. I found family. I found purpose. He paused, gathering his thoughts. I'm not going back to Ikoi. I'm staying here permanently. This is where I belong. The diner erupted in cheers. People clapped. Someone whistled. Derek waited for quiet. I'm also announcing the John Davis Foundation. $400 million dedicated to helping communities like Arepo, fixing community centers, supporting youth programs, helping kids who deserve better. More applause, louder this time. But here's the thing, Derek continued. Money alone doesn't change lives. People change lives. Connection changes lives. Kindness changes lives. So yes, we'll give money, but we'll also give time, energy, heart. We'll show up, we'll help, we'll be present. The way John Davis was, the way his son David is, the way this whole town has been for each other. He looked at David. The boy was crying. So was his Uncle Joe. John Davis taught his son that wealth isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in lives changed, in people helped, in connections made. And by that measure, John Davis was the richest man I've ever heard of. And I'm honored, so honored to carry on his legacy. The diner was silent now. Everyone listening, everyone feeling it. So thank you, Arepo. Thank you for taking in a stranger. Thank you for teaching me what really matters. Thank you for giving me a home. Derek raised his coffee mug. To John Davis, to kindness, to community, to home. To home! Everyone echoed, raising their own mugs. The diner exploded in celebration. People came up to Derek, shook his hand, hugged him, and thanked him. David pushed through the crowd. Mr. Williams. Derek, I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. You already gave me everything. My dad. David's voice broke. My dad would have been so happy, so proud. This foundation in his name, helping people like he did. He couldn't finish. Derek pulled him into a hug, held him while he cried, let him feel it all. Your father's legacy will live forever, Derek said quietly. Through you, through this foundation, through every life we help, he didn't die, David.
He multiplied, and he's going to keep multiplying for generations. They stood there in the crowded diner, the noise and celebration swirling around them. But in that moment, it was just Derek and David, two people connected by loss and hope and the memory of a good man. When David finally pulled back, he was smiling through his tears. "Thank you," he said, "for everything." "Thank you," Derek replied, "for changing my life." The party went late into the night. Stories were told. Laughter filled the air. Plans were made. Around midnight, people started heading home. Work tomorrow, school, life continuing. Derek walked out into the cold Ogun State night. The stars were brilliant, more stars than he'd ever seen in Lagos, the sky alive with light. David, Peter, and Sam walked with him. "So this is really happening," Peter said. "You're really staying, I'm really staying, and the foundation is really happening." "It's really happening." They walked in comfortable silence for a while, their breath visible in the cold air. "Can I ask you something?" Sam said. "Anything. Are you happy? Like, really happy?" Derek stopped walking, thought about it, really thought. 3 months ago, he had everything money could buy and he was miserable. Now he had a room at the Pine Motel, a used truck he'd bought from someone in town, clothes from the local store, and 80 kids who called him Mr. Derek. "Yeah," Derek said, smiling. "I'm really happy. Happier than I've ever been in my entire life." "Good," Sam said simply. "That's good." They reached the motel. Derek's truck sat in the parking lot, mud covering the windshield. "See you tomorrow?" David asked. "See you tomorrow." The boys headed off. Derek watched them go. 3 boys on foot this time. Too late for bikes, but still together, still laughing, still spreading the kindness their father had taught them. Derek went to his room. The heater still rattled. The TV still only got 3 channels. The mattress still sagged. It was perfect. He lay down still in his clothes and stared at the ceiling. His phone buzzed, a message from his lawyer. "Papers drawn up. Board approved the sale. You're officially free. Congratulations." Derek smiled. Free. What a beautiful word. He closed his eyes, thought about tomorrow. Working at the center, having lunch with the kids, and planning the foundation's first projects with Esther. His old life felt like a dream now, a strange, empty dream that he'd finally woken up from. This was real. This was true. This was home. Derek Williams, former billionaire, former CEO, former empty shell of a man, fell asleep in a $25 motel room and dreamed of 3 boys on bicycles riding through a rainstorm coming to save him, not from a broken axle, but from himself. And when he woke up the next morning, sun streaming through the thin curtains, he knew one thing for certain. He'd been saved, completely and utterly saved by kindness, by community, by 3 boys who refused $500 because their father taught them that wealth isn't measured in currency. It's measured in lives changed. And Derek Williams was going to spend the rest of his life changing as many lives as he possibly could, starting right here in Arepo, Ogun State, home. Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt empathy.